A little while back I did a video talking about the Liberty line, the Overground line that runs between Romford and Upminster, and asking whether it should be added to the Elizabeth line. To save you the trouble, my conclusion was no. Today I thought I'd look at another similar question that gets asked a lot. Should the Greenford branch line be turned into an Overground line? If you've never heard of the Greenford line, well, that might not be surprising. It's an odd little branch line that runs from Greenford to West Ealing. It has 3 intermediate stations: South Greenford, Castle Bar Park and Drayton Green. Per November last year, South Greenford, Castle Bar Park and Drayton Green were all on the list of least used stations in London. If you're curious how they stack up, Drayton Green came in at number 2, Castle Bar Park came in at number 3, and South Greenford was at 9. The Greenford branch is a rare non-electrified line in the London area, although long-time viewers might recall my visit last year to try out GWR's experimental battery-powered train over the branch. More on that in a bit. The service is once every half hour with no trains on Sundays. The line was built in 1903 by the Great Western Railway. Like many of these odd little suburban lines, it was not intended as a line in its own right, as it were, but to provide a connection between 2 other, more important lines. Now, before we go on, I should clarify that I'll be talking about 2 different Great Western Railways in this video. There's the original company, which was founded in 1835 and lasted in one form or another until 1948. Then there's the modern train operating company, Great Western Railway. The 2 are not connected, although they do cover many of the same lines. Where was I? Oh yes, connection between more important lines. The main line through West Ealing is the Great Western Main Line, which was originally built to connect London and Bristol, but soon was serving most of the West Country. The line that runs through Greenford was the New North Main Line. Note that was, we'll be coming back to that later. This line runs between Acton and Northolt, and it was part of a route that the OG Great Western Railway used to get to Birmingham. That also opened in 1903, and the branch was built to enable trains to get between the New North Main Line and the Great Western Main Line without having to go all the way into Paddington. Various services have used the branch over the decades. I just learned about one in the 1930s that ran from Clapham Junction, which might be a fun route to try to recreate in a future video. But these days the branch is very much on its own. No trains travel beyond West Ealing or Greenford. Here's the situation as it stands. At Greenford, the old Great Western Railway used to run a train service into Paddington. But in 1947, Greenford, along with several other stations along this line, was handed over to London Transport. It became part of the West Ruislip branch of the London Underground Central Line. Apart from the Greenford branch, there is a main line running alongside the station, which these days is freight only. It's not electrified, and it even has old mechanical semaphore signals. The New North Main Line does not exist as it did in the old GWR days. Trains to Birmingham now run from Marylebone under Chiltern Railways. Until 2022 there was a once-a-week train from West Ruislip to West Ealing over the branch, but that's since been replaced by a token bus service, a parliamentary service that purely exists to save the hassle and cost of closing the route down. In other words, the only rail service from Greenford apart from the branch is the Central Line. As of 2022, West Ealing is on the Elizabeth Line. Great Western Main Line trains pass straight through without stopping. So the Greenford branch is kind of isolated between an underground line and the Elizabeth Line. Low ridership, prospects limited. But as I've said in the past, often the key to reviving an old line is investment, so could the line be modernised, or incorporated into one of London's other transport systems? Well, we'll discount the Elizabeth line straight off the bat. For one thing, when West Ealing Station was rebuilt, the platform for Greenford became a bay platform. You'd need to do a bit of rebuilding to make it work. You'd also have to rebuild every station along the line to take the very long Class 345s. In the case of South Greenford, there physically isn't space to do that. Most possible plans would involve some form of rebuilding, but this would be very radical. There used to be a service into Paddington, and one of the reasons it was cut was because it was taking up more space on the timetable than a train with so few passengers merited. These days, the line into Paddington is even busier, so you'd have to be absolutely certain that the Greenford train justified an Elizabeth line service so much that you could afford to reduce the service to Reading or Heathrow. I think you'd have trouble doing that. OK, what about the Central line? After all, the branch literally runs into the middle of the Underground station. Well, as things stand, the branch is facing in the wrong direction. If a train from West Ealing were to continue along the Central line, it would end up in West Ruislip, and as Chiltern Railways learned, that's not a very popular service. Maybe it would be if it were more frequent. I don't know. One option might be to build a curve facing in the other direction at the Greenford end so the line ran into central London. It would mean skipping past Greenford, though. It would also mean reducing the service from West Ruislip into London. I don't know how popular that would be. But it seems that there's an obvious point of comparison here, and I mentioned it at the start of the video. That is the Liberty line. That too is a short line with short trains, originally built to connect two main lines, but now operating as an isolated service. At one end is an underground line, the District at Upminster, and at the other end, Romford, is the Elizabeth line. In fact, the Liberty line is single track all the way and only has one intermediate stop as compared to the Greenford line's 3. Surely the Greenford branch is an even better candidate. Well, the Liberty line has indeed been a success story since being added to the Overground network, in large part because of the connection between the lines through Romford and Upminster. The thing is, Romford is also served by Greater Anglia, and Upminster is also served by C2C, so it's not just about the Tube and the Lizzie. But I think the Greenford branch as a connection between the Central and Elizabeth lines is a far harder sell. For the simple reason that the next stop east along the Elizabeth line is Ealing Broadway, where there is interchange with the Central line. The Lizzie also meets the Central line at Bond Street, Tottenham Court Road, Liverpool Street and Stratford. In fact, one of the primary reasons it was built was to reduce overcrowding on the Central line, so it shadows it for quite a long way. There's also no Overground depot nearby. The Liberty line trains sleep at Ilford overnight. I guess if one were hell-bent on overgrounding the Greenford line, the thing to do would be to try to make room at Old Oak Common, which, like Ilford, houses Elizabeth line trains. Of the 3 options we've talked about so far, I think the Overground is the best, though far from without its drawbacks. The stations would still require some rebuilding, but not as much. Much of the route is double-tracked, so it may even be possible to increase the service frequency. But the elephant in the room is, does the service need improvement? The stations on the line aren't very well located. The places the line passes through are mostly residential. The buses around here are also pretty good, and an argument I hear against upgrading is simply that the buses provide a better service than the trains. In 2015, which I realise was now 10 years ago, the London Assembly stated that there were no plans to hand the Greenford branch over to TfL. But in 2016 they stated that the possibility was still there. As far as I'm aware, nothing has changed, and with the ongoing renationalisation of Britain's railways, who knows? The line is currently operated by the modern Great Western Railway, who have performed what you might call a low-budget upgrade. Class 230 battery-powered trains. These are rebuilt from old District Line trains, and they are charged using a special rail at West Ealing. As I said at the time, I think this is a very interesting idea with a lot of potential for short lines where full electrification is uneconomical. I think it would be worth looking at whether better trains result in increased passenger numbers. Whether it works or not, the fact that Great Western Railway are investing is a good sign for the future, I think. I'd like to end with a little flight of fancy. If it were up to me to upgrade the route, I'd turn it into a tram. Light rail has lower maintenance cost and typically runs with smaller vehicles, which, historically, has always made it an ideal way to improve underperforming railways at low cost. At the West Ealing end, this could possibly be extended along Argyle Road and onto the Uxbridge Road in the direction of Uxbridge. which would partially be a revival of the indefinitely postponed West London tram proposal of the early 2000s. The tram fare for London is the same as on buses, which is considerably less than the train fare. I don't know, there are probably all sorts of reasons why this couldn't happen, not least because I've skipped right past the depot question, but I'm just throwing ideas out there. Well, I do hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. I would like, as always, to thank my generous donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for supporting the channel. You are the depot to my branch line. And I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.